Hey guys, Alex Kahn here, and already I've got to put a little disclaimer before I talk about this car, just because in 2020, showing this kind of Confederate imagery will provoke strong feelings from both sides of the spectrum. So I want to make this video as apolitical as possible. But that said, everybody knows that NASCAR, a very leading organization of race car driving, has banned all Confederate imagery from their events. So, without further ado, I do want to mention what this car is, show the unboxing, and then talk a little bit more in depth about this car's history. And as you guys know, I do prefer to talk about movie and TV diecast cars because they're a lot more well known. But I will make some exceptions to cars that I think are worth talking about. But yeah, what you're seeing here is the famous 1969 Chevrolet Corvette Rebel L88. And it is the only factory-built third-generation L88 Corvette to win back-to-back titles in the same calendar year for Daytona and Sebring. And it was very successful in a lot of other minor events as well. But in 2014, this car actually sold for $2.86 million at Barrett-Jackson in Scottsdale, Arizona. Before I talk about that, though, I want to go into the details about the unboxing of this car. So yeah, this was made in 2000 by Carousel. Sorry, Carousel 1. And this box is super intense. There are about 3 boxes within this box. So as you take it out of the white box, there's a more detailed maroon box with more details in it. Inside that box is another box. So this kind of reminds me of those Russian Matryoshka dolls, where you take one doll out and there's another, take that one off and there's another doll. So I gotta say, whoever made this diecast, they were very, very, very careful about packaging this car. These boxes are extremely heavy duty. They're extremely sturdy. I've never seen such a well packaged box in my life. But yeah, the box, it says Corvette L88. And as you can see on the front, it does say David Heinz and Bob Johnson, a very famous racing pair for this particular car. But they weren't the only drivers, but this particular car represents the partnership between David Heinz and Bob Johnson. And it mentions one of the races, but this car was very famous at multiple races here. But yeah, this car does have trademark license of Chevrolet, Corvette emblem, and Corvette body designs, General Motor trademarks, Goodyear tires, BF Goodrich tires, and yeah, again, made in 2000, made in China. The Carousel 1 is based out of North Carolina, USA. So I made I made some footnotes about this car because I can't remember all the details of this car. As you guys know, I'm a huge car enthusiast, but I don't know much about the technical aspects of cars myself. But yeah, everybody knows what the General Lee was, made in 1979. The TV show made in 1979. The General Lee was a 69 Dodge Charger. On the very top, on the roof, it had the stars and bars on top. And most people assume that was the first, car to do that on television. But in the race car scene, back in 1971, this L88 Corvette actually had this stars and bars theme emblazoned all over its body. But I want to talk more about the car's history, because the car didn't start off looking like this. So yeah, as I said, this was the 1969 Chevy Corvette L88, and they only made 116 of these in 1969. And the person who bought this car, he actually special ordered it. And what's really interesting is that he's a fellow local Floridian. This guy's name was Orlando Costanzo, and unlike his name, he was actually based in Tampa. He was a car enthusiast, and he also raced Corvette cars locally. But when he bought this car, it came in a Daytona yellow, and it would stay that color until about 2 years later in 1971. But I'll lead up to that in a second here. As I said, they only made 116 of these in 69, but this particular car was only one of 4 that was special ordered with an open chamber head. And with the current setup, it was rated. The engine was rated at 430 horsepower, but if you added the side exhaust, as you can see in the headers, it could easily reach up to 560 horsepower. So what's interesting about this car, and most people didn't realize it, is that this is actually a factory-built car, and it was made to be a race car, made to compete with very professional race car teams. When Costanzo got this car in, he kept it yellow, but he did add some things to it, like the headers, the side pipes. Also added these flares to it. I'm not sure if the cool air induction hood was already there, but yeah, he added some quite a few things to it. He got this car, and in the same year, he entered it into the 1969 12 Hours of Sebring, and this car actually finished third in the GT class. And that's crazy because the team that was racing there, this team was made completely of amateurs, minus David Heinz, who had a lot of experience as a race car driver. But aside from David Heinz, the rest of the team was basically all amateurs, and they were all driving this factory-built race car. But they also raced in some minor racing events after the 69 12 Hours of Sebring. And some of the bigger events, like the 1970 24 Hours of Daytona and the 1970 Hours of Sebring, it had a lot of mechanical issues, so it didn't do so well at those. And it did all these races with no major sponsorships, so that was really crazy too. So it's kind of like those movies where you're struggling to get a sponsor, but you're still performing pretty well at these famous races composed of professional race car teams. But in the 1971 season, remember who I mentioned, Heinz, one of the race car drivers? That was the year that he added the 57 to this car. And a lot of that was in part a joke to the ketchup, Heinz 57. And also, some think he did it to hopefully get the sponsorship of Heinz 57 ketchup. Because again, as I said, they didn't really have a major sponsorship for this car. And that was also the year that they added Bob Johnson to the race car team. So that's why you see David Heinz and Bob Johnson's name on the driver and passenger side door. But yeah, this car placed 6th overall at the 1971 24 Hours of Daytona and placed 2nd in the GT class. And at the 1971 12 Hours of Sebring, it had some gearbox issues, but it somehow managed to still finish 10th overall, 2nd in the GT class, doing that all driving exclusively in 4th gear because of the gearbox problems. That's when the IMSA racing event was starting to form, and that allowed these Corvettes to use extra wide fender flares. And that was also the time where this car added the very famous Stars and Bars Confederate theme to the body. And then the reason why they did that was to poke fun at a fellow Corvette driver named John Greenwood, who had the Stars and Stripes theme on his car. So that's the reason why they added the Stars and Bars. But yeah, that's when this car became the famous Rebel Corvette. And there were a lot of famous driver changes. That's when they also added Yenko. But this particular car, as I said, it does specify David Heinz and Bob Johnson. Also, you see these Goodyear tires on this car. When this car won its race, I forgot what year it was, but Goodyear actually started to show off, talking about these experimental tires. They were actually the very first radial tires ever used on a race car. All right, I want to talk about some of these opening parts on this diecast, because this car is really, really, really detailed. So yeah, inside, these seats, these bucket seats, they are made of rubber. Pretty flexible, actually. I like that it's not hard plastic, because I hate when I touch the hard plastic seats. It just doesn't feel right. I'm not saying rubber is the equivalent of having actual bucket seats, but at least rubber feels a lot more authentic than hard plastic. But I want to look at the bottom, at the undercarriage here. Man, this car is heavy. This is the heaviest diecast car I've ever picked up in 1/18 scale. But look at the details on the undercarriage. There's actual wiring down here. And you can see I've got a number on this, number 4446. So I'm assuming this is a very limited diecast, probably of 5,000. That's usually the magic number for limited numbers of cards. And now this cold air induction hood does open up. It won't stay open. There is a little hook here that in real life this would keep the hood open, but I don't know if this actually come out. I don't want to break it open. But if you look at the hood, look under the hood, you can see its engine inside. So yeah, very detailed car. And again, I do want to stress that in today's climate, you couldn't really, drive this car out in public without some very strong feelings about this car one way or the other. And I gotta stress a previous point. NASCAR has banned Confederate imagery from their events, so that just shows that today's today's sensibilities are a bit different than back then. It's just, it's a different culture today. But I think as a piece of history, this Corvette is very historical. Yeah, I just want to take a look at this car, and I will show other non-TV, non-movie cars on my channel. But, I do prefer to show the movie and TV variants just because, most people will recognize them. And, we have a common talking point. I was just looking at these things on the front wheels. I don't know what those things are attached to the front wheels. It's only on the front. So, I don't know if any of you guys would know what these actually do. Maybe it's some kind of way to cool the front wheels, maybe, the brakes, maybe. I don't really know. But anyways, thank you for watching this video. And tell me what you guys think.